Hi, I'm Brad Taylor, and I've been getting a lot of comments and questions on Facebook and email and text and everything else about the Maduro raid yesterday. Originally, I was hesitant to say anything because I couldn't put out anything more than what everybody's bloviating about. But I slept on it last night. I did have a couple of thoughts I'd like to give out today. Um, Number one was the timing of the mission. It was the assault itself happened on a full moon, which usually you don't want to do. You want to go in under cover of darkness. And so if we knew where that guy was 100%, you just wait until the moon went away and then you do the assault. It tells me when on full moon there was some kind of trigger for the assault itself. Two things that I thought were unique, and I have no idea if this had anything to do with the mission, was number one, we got Noriega 35 years ago to the day that we got Maduro. And I don't know if that had anything to do with the mission itself, but they certainly are using, the administration is using the Noriega operation as a template for this one. So I thought that was kind of unique that they got him the same day. Number two, China, President Xi sent in his special Chinese envoy for Venezuela to support Venezuela in their fight against America 8 hours before we took Maduro. So those guys woke up the next morning and said, I guess those meetings are off. More than likely, though, it was more a timing based thing. We're tracking that guy around, and there was a trigger when he ends at location X, and he ended up at location X. But I don't honestly know. I posted a blog about a month ago saying that all this gunboat diplomacy was geared not against drugs, but against regime change, and I got some pushback on that. But it looks like I was proven right. I mean, make no mistake, the decision to remove Maduro was done months ago. They did not run into President Trump in Mar-a-Lago and say, hey, guess what? We found Maduro at this location and we can get him. What do you say? Let's do it. The op order was created. They've done rehearsals. They were waiting on the trigger. All they needed was the execute order. So the administration had made the decision to remove Maduro a long time ago. I'm not going to get into the whole legal discussion about whether that removal was legal or not legal, international law, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's babbling about that, but I would like to point out that Maduro himself was an illegitimate president. They had an election in 2024. He clearly lost. He clearly said, no, no, I won, and clamped down on everybody and just said, I'm staying in power. So much so that President Trump in the first administration said, hey, that guy's a bad dude. $10 million reward for his removal and conviction for drugs. Biden won the election. Biden took when he took over, he raised it from $10 million to $25 million. He had a bounty on Maduro's head for the arrest and conviction and removal from office. Then Trump took over again, and he raised it to $50 million. So I mean, this is a bipartisan thing. Nobody's, I don't, people now are running around saying he's a good guy or not. He's not a good dude. He was illegitimate from the start. The closest comparison we have to today's operation is, in fact, Panama, like I said before. We removed Noriega for running drugs and brought him back to the United States and tried and convicted him. And then he actually went to France and got convicted there for running drugs into France. And Panama had a pretty good, clean return back to democracy. On the surface, the two cases are remarkably similar, but there's a lot of people talking about Panama, but there's a lot of differences between Panama and Venezuela. Number one, Venezuela is much, much larger than Panama. The population of Panama is about 5 million people. The population of Venezuela, even with everybody leaving, is about 30 million. The landmass of Venezuela is about 12 times the size of Panama, and it has borders against 3 other countries, a long, porous border. All that would have to be secured. In Panama itself, when we did Operation Just Cause, we had a huge United States presence. We had multiple military bases in the country, permanently stationed from which to operate from. In effect, we had massive boots on the ground in Panama before we put boots on the ground for Just Cause, and those boots on the ground remained after the boots on the ground from Just Cause left. In fact, the incoming president that took over from Noriega, he was sworn in on a U.S. military base. We don't have anything like that in Venezuela. We don't even have an embassy. There's no footprint in Venezuela to do anything like that. In addition, Panama had the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal is enormously important for global trade. It's a huge security problem set that other countries need. That tend to tamp down any malign actors from other countries that want to see us get egg on our face or anything like that. They would harm their own self-interest. If there's turmoil in Panama and the Panama Canal was interrupted, that would hurt their ability to do trade. And so that tend to tamp down anybody saying let's mess with the Americans. They were just like, let's let this regime change go through so we can get the trade going back through the Panama Canal. You don't have that in Venezuela. They have, in fact, you have the opposite. The Venezuela oil reserves are all going to malign actors, Iran, into China and Russia, whoever's buying Venezuelan oil. They want that oil, and the regime change will cut that flow off. It gives them an impetus to do malign influence stuff inside the country as we attempt to do regime change. But the big key difference between Panama and Venezuela now is we removed Noriega and we removed Maduro, but in Panama we removed Noriega's power base, which was the Panamanian Defense Forces. We came in there and removed everybody. So you got rid of Noriega, you got rid of everybody who supported Noriega, and then you had a peaceful transition back to democracy with a new administration. In Venezuela, we got rid of Maduro, but the power base is there. All those bad actors. I mean, the indictment for Maduro has a plethora of other dudes on that indictment. They're all still in Venezuela, and they're all still running the government. So where does that leave us? Clearly, from the president's press conference yesterday, he's not looking to take a wholesale chop at the Maduro regime. In fact, surprisingly to me, he took an axe to the Nobel laureate opposition leader, saying she didn't have the respect and support of the country, and that he was talking to the vice president of the Maduro regime and working with her to coordinate further operations. He said they're going to run the country from afar and indicated clearly that it'd be by, with, and through the current regime, focusing on the resurrection of Venezuela's oil revenue, the massive oil reserves they have underneath the ground there. And this, in my mind, raises a question of what are we calling success here? What is the definition of success? The president said there would never be a large U.S. presence there because it's all going to be paid for by these enormous oil reserves. But I've heard that song before in Iraq. The problem with extracting oil is a two-step process. Number one, before any of these companies are going to invest massive infrastructure and money into a country to extract the oil, there's got to be security on the ground. Nobody's going to want to be trying to get oil out of the ground while you have pillboxes and machine guns protecting you. No company's going to invest in that. That's the exact problem we had in Iraq. It was never stable enough for any company to say, yeah, I'm willing to go in there and dodge the VBIEDs. There's only two ways you get security in a situation like that. Either you have the power base of the country, gives you the security, or you remove the power base of the country and you provide that security yourself. In this case, we're not removing the power base of the country. We did that with Noriega, but we're not doing that here. Which means we need to co-opt the current power base in order to get the security in the country we need to do this investment. Which brings up, once again, a duality. What is the definition of success? Are we there for the oil and to stop the flow of drugs? Or are we there for the oil, stop the flow of drugs, and stop the repression of the Maduro regime? You can do number one, get the oil, and do number two, stop the flow of drugs, by co-opting the Maduro regime, leaving all those bad actors in place as long as they play ball your way. But you can't do number three, stop the repression of the Venezuelan people, stop the dictatorship actions without removing the regime. Unfortunately, this then rolls into the dreaded nation building term. We don't want to do nation building. We're not doing that. We're not doing nation building. Well, on the plus side, Venezuela isn't Iraq. It hasn't been run by a dictatorship like Saddam Hussein. It's not Libya like Gaddafi. It has a healthy democratic traditions to fall back on, just like Panama had. The only problem right now is the bad guys are in charge of the levers of power. It's not that the levers of power don't exist. It's not that they haven't seen democracy. They have. It's only been, he's been in power. 2024 was the election, 2 years ago that he said he legitimately won when he didn't. So before that time, they were having free and fair elections. The Colin Powell had a saying way back when, famously had a saying for the Pottery Barn corollary to military intervention, which was, if you break it, you own it. And I hope we take that to heart here. In the short term, we can allow Maduro regime to exist while gaining the oil fields and stopping the flow of drugs. But I think if you leave that repression in place, if you leave the problem set that Maduro had in there and only gain profit from the oil and stop the flow of drugs, you're going to still have a national security situation in the Southern Hemisphere. If that's worthy of removing Maduro, it's worthy of removing the entire regime. It'll only get worse, especially if we invest a ton of money from U.S. oil companies into the oil fields down there. Now we have a huge monetary investment, and things get unstable because of his repressive actions, and the opposition starts fighting and all that. Then we're really gonna have nation building. We're really gonna have a problem set that we don't want. In my mind, it's better to rip off the Band-Aid like we did in Panama. Clean out the regime and have a true transitional government. There's a president in exile who won the popular vote. Get him in there. A true transitional government. and get back to a free and fair democracy where they can legitimately use the resources they have for the wealth of the people. Now, right off the bat, you're like, okay, Brad's talking about, he's a neocon. Here he comes. He wants to jump into, 82nd Airborne and the Rangers. I'm not saying we need to invade the country. I'm not saying we need to occupy it for the next 20 years. I'm not saying any of that. Even from afar, we have leverage. I mean, there's two ways that we can deal with the regime that's there right now. On the one hand, we can say, hey, you're done. Pack your bags, pack your belongings, and get on out of here. You're going to have free and fair elections, and we're transitioning to a democracy, and I'll let you leave right now. Just like we told Maduro. We told him he can go into exile. Tell these guys here, you can leave right now. Take whatever nest egg you have, pack it up, and move out. And if you don't pack it up and move out, then we're going to do absolute resolve number 2, and we're going to get rid of you the hard way. I mean, actually, we could do all this from afar without even introducing another risk to U.S. forces doing a capture mission. I mean, if you fully believe we're justified in killing some boat driver making $50 driving a drug boat, killing him with a drone, then by extension, the guy that's making $50 million to order that boat to go somewhere, hit him with a drone. I said in the earlier blog that I referenced earlier that these guys, I talked about terrorism in that blog, and that there's an ideological component to terrorism that doesn't come into play here, and that's absolutely true. These guys are all about making money. And if one of those guys gets smoked by a drone, and I'm not saying we should do this, but I'm just saying, just theoretically, one of those guys got smoked by a drone, you better believe the rest of them are going to take their nest egg and move out. The other thing we can say is, hey, regime that's still there in place, look, if you let us extract the oil for our profit, okay, if you let us do that and you quit dealing drugs, then you can do whatever you want to in your country. It's your country. We won't interfere. You can keep your regime. You can keep your corruption, and we'll keep our profits. That is certainly something we could do. And I hope we don't. That's just going to cause a festering sore down in southern hemisphere that we're going to have to deal with at a later base. And it's just not the right thing to do. We broke it. We own it. Fix it. I hope we choose the first path. I mean, it's definitely harder, but in the end, I think it'll facilitate our greater national security in the long term than just short-term profits from what we can glean out of that regime. If Maduro was in fact the evil person we say he is, then the regime is as well. All those guys that are on the indictment with Maduro, they all need to leave. I think we owe it to those people, since we came in and broke it. Go ahead and get them back to traditional democracy. It may take a little bit longer, but we will then get the same profits from the oil. We will then also have the stopping the flow of drugs. And all in all the way around, I think it works out best. Anyway, those are some of my thoughts. I hope they've been helpful. Thank you for listening, and feel free to comment on your own.